Did you know that right now, while you are watching this video, someone in America is dying in their sleep? No pain, no warning, no sound. A family will walk into their bedroom tomorrow morning and find them gone. This is not a rare event. This is not a worst-case scenario reserved for people in very poor health. According to the American Heart Association, cardiovascular disease kills over 700,000 Americans every year. And a significant portion of those deaths happen during sleep, when people believed they were safe, when the people who loved them had no idea anything was wrong. The most dangerous hours for your heart are not when you are stressed at work, not when you are exercising, not when something frightening happens. The most dangerous hours for your heart are between midnight and 6 in the morning, during sleep. I need to ask you something uncomfortable right now. What do you do before you go to bed? Because I'm Dr. Nova Blake, and after 30 years of practicing medicine, after sitting with families in emergency waiting rooms, after having conversations I wish I never had to have, I've reached a conclusion that has fundamentally changed how I think about sleep. Sleep seems like the safest thing a person can do. But what you do in the hours before you close your eyes can be the difference between waking up and not waking up. Today I'm going to walk you through the specific nighttime habits that science has confirmed increase your risk of dying in your sleep. Things you may be doing tonight, believing they are completely harmless. Things that my patients were doing. People who were managing their health carefully. People who went to bed normally and didn't come back. Stay with me until the end, because the number one habit on this list is something that most people would never connect to heart attack or stroke. And it may be the most common, dangerous habit of all. Before we begin, one important note. Everything I share today is general medical information based on published research. It is not a substitute for your personal medical care. Please always work with your own physician before making changes to your medications or health routine. Now let me explain something about what your heart actually needs at night, because understanding this makes everything else make sense. Think of your heart like the engine of a car that has been running all day. During daylight hours, that engine is under constant demand. Work stress, family demands, news, traffic, food, movement. It never fully stops. When night comes, something remarkable is supposed to happen. The engine is supposed to downshift. Cardiologists call this nocturnal dipping. In a healthy cardiovascular system, blood pressure drops between 10 and 20% during sleep. The muscular walls of your arteries relax. The heart rate slows. The vessels rest and repair. This is not optional maintenance. This nocturnal dipping is one of the most important protective processes that happens in your cardiovascular system. Research shows that people who experience proper nocturnal dipping have dramatically lower rates of heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular death compared to those whose blood pressure stays elevated through the night. But when you commit the mistakes I'm about to describe, that dipping doesn't happen. Your blood pressure stays high while you sleep. The engine stays revved while the car sits in the garage. And an engine that runs hot, under load, for 8 hours straight eventually breaks down. That breakdown is what we call a nocturnal cardiac event. And most people who experience one had no idea it was coming. Now let's go through the habits. Pay close attention to each one because they compound each other. Habit number 7, the heavy late dinner. Tell me how many nights this week you came home after 7 or 8 in the evening, genuinely hungry, and served yourself a full plate. Pasta, protein, maybe something fried, and went to bed shortly afterward. I understand completely. Life is demanding. Work consumes the day. There isn't time to eat properly during daylight hours, and when you finally get home, your body is demanding food. But I need to tell you what happens inside your body when you do this. When you eat a large meal, your digestive system requires a massive increase in blood flow to process it. Your stomach and intestines pull circulation toward them. This is enormous work for the heart, which has to pump more, work harder, circulate more volume. Now imagine all of this happening while you're trying to sleep. Think of a pressure cooker. You put it on the heat, seal the valve, and try to rest. The late heavy dinner does exactly this to your body. It keeps the system running hot at precisely the moment it needs to power down. Studies published in the European Heart Journal confirm that eating late at night keeps blood pressure elevated during sleep, preventing the nocturnal dipping your cardiovascular system depends on. The person sleeps, but the body doesn't truly rest. The pressure never falls. And this, night after night, places a cumulative burden on the arteries, the heart, and the blood vessels feeding the brain. I have a patient I'll call Helen. She's 63 years old, retired, grandmother of 3. Every evening she prepared a full dinner after the news, a complete meal with multiple courses. She went to bed satisfied, believing she was taking care of herself and her family. When Helen came to my office for the first time, her nighttime blood pressure readings were dangerously elevated. She didn't know, because her morning readings were relatively normal. It was the overnight pressure that was quietly destroying her vessel walls while she slept, dreaming of her grandchildren. The change was simple. Dinner no later than 6:30, a lighter evening meal. Within 3 months, her overnight blood pressure profile normalized completely. She avoided a heart attack or stroke that had been building quietly, meal by meal, night by night. What you can do. Aim to eat your last meal at least 2 hours before sleep. Choose lighter foods in the evening, a soup, an egg, fish, fruit. Save the heavier, more complex meals for lunch, when your body has the entire afternoon to process them. But the next habit is even more dangerous, and I'll bet most of you are doing it tonight. Habit number 6, screen light before bed. Do this for me. Tonight, when you're lying in bed, turn the lights off and look around the room. How many screens are glowing? The television? Your phone? A tablet? A major research study analysed light exposure patterns in tens of thousands of people across multiple countries. The findings were alarming. People with the highest exposure to artificial light during the nighttime hours had a 65% higher risk of suffering a heart attack, a 56% higher risk of developing heart failure, and a 30% higher risk of stroke. 65%. That is not a small number. But how can the light from a screen threaten your heart? Inside your brain, there is a tiny gland called the pineal gland, and it produces a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is the signal your body uses to understand that night has arrived. It is what tells the heart to slow down, the blood pressure to drop, the vessels to relax. It is the conductor of the body's recovery orchestra. Think of melatonin as the master off switch for your cardiovascular system's daily stress response. When darkness comes, the switch gets thrown. The system begins its repair cycle. But when you stare at a bright screen, the blue light it emits tricks your brain. The brain registers that it is still daytime. The switch is never thrown. Melatonin is never released. The heart stays in alert mode when it desperately needs to be in recovery mode. Night after night, this creates a state of chronic cardiovascular stress. The vessels never fully relax. Blood pressure never fully drops, and the risk of a cardiac event during sleep accumulates quietly, invisibly. I treated a patient, Richard, 58 years old, a retired accountant from Ohio. Never smoked, never drank heavily. He believed he was healthy, but he had a habit. He stayed up until midnight or 1 in the morning, watching shows on his phone in bed. Sometimes he fell asleep with the screen still on. When he came to my office after a frightening episode of morning dizziness, we discovered he had been experiencing severe nocturnal blood pressure spikes. His melatonin levels were nearly undetectable. His phone was literally sabotaging his heart while he slept. What you can do. Put your phone in another room at night. Turn off screens at least 1 hour before bed. If you must use screens in the evening, use blue light filters. And make your bedroom as dark as possible. Blackout curtains may be one of the best investments you ever make in your cardiovascular health. Habit number 5. Irregular sleep timing. Tell me honestly, do you go to bed and wake up at the same time every day? Or during the week you sleep at 11 and wake at 6, and on weekends you stay up until 2 in the morning and sleep until noon? If you reversed your schedule on the weekends, you need to hear what I'm about to say very carefully. A study published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health followed more than 72,000 people between the ages of 40 and 79 for nearly 8 years, and found something that genuinely shook the medical community. Even people who were sleeping the recommended amount, 7 to 8 hours a night, when those hours were slept at irregular times, their risk of heart attack, stroke, and heart failure increased by 26%. 26% higher risk of a cardiac event from irregular sleep timing alone, even when total sleep duration was adequate. This happens because your body operates on an internal clock. Scientists call it the circadian rhythm. Think of it as a biological timer built into every cell of your body, programmed to run each organ, each hormone, each physiological process at specific times that align with the natural cycle of daylight and darkness. When you disrupt that clock by sleeping at different hours from one day to the next, it is as if you change time zones every weekend. Your body enters a kind of perpetual jet lag, and the systems that suffer most from that disruption are the heart and the blood vessels. The Harvard Medical School has published data confirming that the consistency of your sleep timing may actually be more important than the total number of hours slept when it comes to cardiovascular health. What you can do: choose a sleep time and a wake time and protect them, including on weekends. Allow no more than a 30-minute variance. This feels restrictive at first, but within 2 weeks your body recalibrates and you will find yourself naturally tired at the right time, without medication. Habit number 4. Ignoring snoring and sleep apnea. Do you snore? Has anyone ever told you that you stop breathing during sleep? Do you wake up with headaches? Do you feel tired during the day even after sleeping for hours? If you answered yes to any of those, please pay close attention to what I'm about to say, because this may be the most important section of this entire video. According to the American Sleep Apnea Association, over 22 million Americans suffer from sleep apnea, and the vast majority of them do not know it. Sleep apnea is when the throat closes during sleep, blocking the airway. The person stops breathing, sometimes for 10 seconds, sometimes for 30, sometimes for a minute or longer. And this can happen dozens, sometimes hundreds of times per night. Think about what this does to your heart. Every time the breathing stops, blood oxygen levels drop sharply. The brain registers a crisis. It floods the body with adrenaline and cortisol. Blood pressure spikes. heart rate surges, and this happens over and over again all night long while you believe you are resting. Untreated sleep apnea is one of the most dangerous cardiovascular risk factors that exists. Specialists compare it to diabetes and smoking in terms of its impact on the heart. Research from the University of São Paulo found that the prevalence of sleep disorders in patients who suffered ischemic strokes was approximately 75%. I want to tell you about Thomas, 73 years old, a retired contractor. His wife had been telling him for years that his snoring was alarming. She heard the pauses in his breathing. She would shake him awake, frightened. Thomas always laughed it off. One morning, his wife couldn't wake him for breakfast. He had suffered a stroke during the night while he slept. He spent months in rehabilitation. When we completed the full investigation, his sleep apnea was severe. His heart had been subjected to nightly stress surges for years. His blood pressure had been spiking hundreds of times every night. The blood vessels in his brain had been silently deteriorating until one of them finally gave out. Snoring is not just noise. Snoring can be your heart asking for help. What you can do. If you snore and experience any of the symptoms I described, ask your doctor for a sleep study called a polysomnography. Treatment exists, it is effective, and it can save your life. Habit number 3. Using alcohol to relax and sleep. Doctor, I just have 1 glass of wine to unwind before bed. Is that really a problem? I need to be completely honest with you here, because honesty is what responsible medicine requires. Alcohol before sleep is one of the worst things you can do for your heart at night. I know it seems contradictory, because alcohol creates drowsiness and helps you fall asleep faster. But what happens after that is what matters. Alcohol fragments sleep. It may deepen sleep in the first few hours, but in the second half of the night, it makes sleep extremely shallow, full of micro-arousals you don't consciously register, but that prevent the heart from ever entering deep recovery mode. And there is a more serious problem. Alcohol relaxes the muscles of the throat. This dramatically worsens sleep apnea. Even in people who do not have diagnosed apnea, alcohol can provoke episodes of airway obstruction during the night. The muscles become so relaxed that the airway closes completely. Combining alcohol with sleep medications is potentially fatal. The muscle relaxation in the throat can become so profound that the brain cannot wake the body in time to restore breathing. Research published in the European Heart Journal showed that irregular sleep patterns, combined with alcohol consumption, significantly increase the risk of cardiovascular events, particularly in people over 50. I treated a patient, Carol, 62 years old, who every evening poured herself just 1 small glass of bourbon to help her sleep. She believed it was harmless, even beneficial. In reality, she was self-medicating for nighttime anxiety, and that habit was destroying her sleep quality, keeping her blood pressure elevated through the night and creating a dependence she didn't recognize. When she stopped drinking before sleep, her overnight blood pressure normalized within 4 weeks. She told me she had slept more soundly than she had in years. What you can do. If you are using alcohol to manage sleep or anxiety, talk to your doctor. There are far safer and more effective options. This is not a judgment, it is a health necessity. Habit number 2. Being a night owl without management. I'm just a night person, Dr. Blake. I've always been this way. I can't fall asleep early. I hear this constantly. And there is a study published in January 2026 in the Journal of the American Heart Association that I need to share with you, because it changes what the science thinks about this. More than 300,000 adults with a mean age of 57 were followed for 14 years. The results were clear. People with evening chronotypes, those who have their peak energy and activity at night, showed a 16% higher risk of heart attack or stroke compared to people with intermediate timing. In women, the risk was even higher. 16% may sound modest, but consider this. If you already have other risk factors such as high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, diabetes, or excess weight, that 16% stacks on top of everything else. And what the study found most compelling was that the greatest danger for night owls wasn't simply the late bedtime itself. It was the constellation of behaviors that accompanies a nocturnal lifestyle. Eating poorly at late hours, getting less quality sleep overall, less physical activity, more sedentary screen time. It is a complete nighttime lifestyle that progressively strains the heart across years. What you can do. You don't need to force yourself to sleep at 8 p.m., but you can gradually shift your bedtime earlier, 15 minutes per week, until you reach an alignment that works better with the natural day cycle. Avoid bright light in the evening and seek morning sunlight, as this directly recalibrates your circadian clock. And now, habit number 1. The most dangerous of all, the most silent, the one that kills the most Americans in their sleep, and the one you almost certainly would never have thought to connect to heart attack or stroke. Habit number 1. Sleeping fewer than 5 hours and believing you have adapted. I've gotten used to it. I sleep 4 or 5 hours and feel fine. Look at me when I say this. That belief is the most dangerous health self-deception in cardiovascular medicine. A study presented at the scientific sessions of the American College of Cardiology analyzed over 14,000 Americans and arrived at a number that made me stop and sit quietly for a moment. People who sleep fewer than 5 hours per night have a 69% higher risk of suffering a heart attack compared to those sleeping 7 to 8 hours. 69%. Nearly double the risk. A separate study conducted by the University of Warwick, published in the European Heart Journal, reviewed data from dozens of studies involving over 1 million participants and concluded, sleeping fewer than 6 hours per night increases by 48% the likelihood of developing or dying from heart disease, and by 15% the likelihood of developing or dying from stroke. How does this happen? When you sleep too little, your body produces excess cortisol. More cortisol means higher blood pressure. More cortisol means more inflammation in the blood vessel walls. More cortisol means elevated blood sugar. Your body operates in a state of constant biological emergency, even when you are trying to rest. And people who chronically sleep too little lose the ability to perceive how impaired they are. The brain adapts to the fatigue. The person believes they are functioning normally. They are not. They are operating well below capacity and pushing their cardiovascular system to the edge night after night. I want to tell you about Frank, 55 years old, a small business owner in Nashville. Frank was proud of sleeping little. He told me regularly, 4 hours and I'm sharp. I don't need more. For 2 years I had this conversation with him. For 2 years he dismissed the concern, pointing to his energy levels and his productivity as proof that he was fine. Then one Monday morning, after a weekend of particularly intense work and minimal sleep, Frank had a heart attack in the shower getting ready for the office. His wife was home and called 911 in time. Frank survived. When he was able to speak again, I went to see him in the hospital. He looked at me and said, "You were right." and I felt no satisfaction, only grief. Because we almost lost a man in his prime to 4 hours of sleep a night. What you can do. The recommended sleep duration for adults is 7 to 9 hours per night, according to the World Health Organization. If you are sleeping less than that, it is not strength, it is not productivity, it is not a virtue. It is a measurable, documented risk to your life. Create a sleep routine. Same bedtime, same wake time, no screens, dark room, cool temperature. If you have difficulty sleeping, speak with your doctor before taking anything on your own. Let me bring this together for you. 7 nighttime habits are quietly increasing your risk of dying in your sleep. The late, heavy dinner that keeps blood pressure elevated through the night. The screen light that blocks melatonin and keeps the heart in alert mode. The irregular sleep schedule that puts the cardiovascular system in perpetual jet lag. The untreated snoring and sleep apnea that subjects the heart to hundreds of oxygen deprivation crises every night. The alcohol that fragments sleep and worsens airway obstruction. The night owl lifestyle that compounds cardiovascular risk factors over years. And sleeping fewer than 5 hours, which nearly doubles heart attack risk. For tonight, I am asking you to do 3 things. Eat your last meal earlier and lighter. Turn off your screens 1 hour before bed. Commit to a consistent bedtime and protect it. If you snore, please call your doctor tomorrow. Not next week, tomorrow. And if you are sleeping fewer than 7 hours believing you have adapted, please reconsider. Your heart has not adapted. It is simply running out of time to tell you so. You have worked hard for the life you have, for your independence, your health, your ability to be present for the people you love. Do not let something as manageable as sleep habits take any of that from you. You don't have to die in your sleep. You have the power to change this, starting tonight. Share this video with someone you love, a parent, a sibling, a friend who sleeps too little, a spouse whose snoring worries you. You may be giving them something they didn't know they needed. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that now and turn on notifications. Every week I bring you honest, research-based information about what your body needs after 60. The conversations that happen in the best doctors' offices, brought to you wherever you are. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.